Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. And Brichelle is here. Brichelle's here. My gosh, Brichelle is actually here. How are you? And hold
good.
on, the president's calling. And I got to do that and stuff. And Brichelle,
Yes.
do you? And you've been working with me for a little while now. Do you recognize that we all have the ability to choose our own way of being, our own style of life, whatever it is that we want to be, and that we can be happy? And but it's got to come from within, and it's got to come from ourselves. You know what? We've got somebody that's going to talk to us about that. Would you like to introduce her by chance?
I would love to. We have Tammy Vincent here with us today, and she helps people understand that you can live the life that you choose to live. So, how are you doing, Tammy? And thank you for being here.
I am doing absolutely wonderful, and I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Of course.
So, how did you get started going down this road? Were you born like this, or did you have a moment in time when you said, "You know, I can make things different than they are today"?
Well, I think we were all born like that, but then life happens and it gets knocked out of us temporarily. So we're told all of the other things besides what we were born as, which is joyous, divine, pure, happy, fun, spontaneous, all those things. And then life happens. So then you're told you're not good enough, or you're not big enough, or you have to play small, or your feelings don't matter, and you're told all that stuff. And after about 26 years of being told all that stuff and told you'll only do X, Y, and Z, or you'll only be X, Y, and Z, I finally called baloney on that.
And I'll bet you didn't even use that word baloney.
Nope, did not.
But you're a seasoned podcaster. You have your own podcast, and you've got a bunch of stuff that you're doing, and we're so glad that you're here. Because but speaking of which, you were 26 when you made the decision that baloney and all this stuff.
Yes.
That's
26.
how old she is.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It hit me a little earlier, which is weird. But now I agree. There's no way around the BS with me anymore. And I think it's frustrating for a lot of people. And that's the other side too, that I can't wait to talk to you about, is how it is once you have figured that out and you do start to change in yourself, and your relationships with other people also change.
Oh, everything, absolutely everything changes.
Yep.
And I probably knew it way before 26, but there wasn't, your purpose has to be bigger than your pain in order to actually do something about it.
Mhm.
And so 26 was my moment.
That's in another t-shirt. Your purpose is bigger than your pain.
Yep. I couldn't have said it any better than that. And I think a lot of us have that in us, but until we're aware of it, it's kind of driving us, so we feel lost. And we had talked about this yesterday on a show, with how much does it take for you to lose before you hit that point? Because I think that's the point of it. And a lot of people is you try to help people, or people try to help you, being the person who's needing it. And if you don't want to change, you're not going to.
No. And sometimes, like you said, it's a lot about just becoming aware that option is out there for you.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people that I talk to in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s that were like, I never knew that this was not normal. I never knew that I wasn't supposed to, have things to be able to say, and I never knew I was supposed to be able to stand up for myself and voice my opinion. They just never knew. It was their normal growing up, and they just carried on into life. And life's too short to just settle.
That's very true.
Well, so many of us, because of how we're brought up, and we see the previous generations, like in my case, my dad was his job was to go to work every day and earn a living for the family, and but that was it. As far as being vested in who he really was, he never went down that road. He didn't think he could, and that is such a sad commentary that when you live your whole life and you don't really know that you can do something different. And so you end up, in his case, he ended up sitting on a couch watching television for the last dozen years of his life because he had no idea what he was going to do with himself. And I'm really glad that that's why you're here, is to help people understand.
Nope, he's cutting out. But I have a
Right.
question. We'll get him back in any moment. Don't you worry.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. When you work with people and you tell them this, what's their reaction, especially when they're older?
A lot of times it's shock. A lot of times they'll see something or hear something on a podcast and they'll just be like, I just lived my whole life and I just thought this was the way it was supposed to be based on generation, based on everything else. This is just my destiny. And I'm like, only you can really decide your destiny.
Mm.
And and that's why I think we're out here. I think that's why we have these podcasts to scream at the top of the mountains that, if you're not living your best life, if you question that for 1 minute, then there's something worth exploring.
Mm.
Because, like he said about his father was whatever his profession was, I don't know, but that was his identity. And so many people get wrapped up in that. I'm a mother, I'm a
Mm.
teacher, I'm a this, I'm a that. And then when someone says to them, well, who are you without all of that? Like, what if you lost all that tomorrow? Who would you be? And they have absolutely no freaking idea.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, that's so sad because it's probably so common. And when they get this news, it may even, like for me, I wasn't old, it was pretty young, but it still scared me because I realized that I had control of everything. But with them being older at times, do you see how maybe it helps them understand the younger or change their relationships with the younger people in their life and having more of an understanding and an openness, maybe?
I think some people, it can go either way. I think some people, like in their 60s and 70s, if all of a sudden they go, wow, I could have actually had a life. I could have done
Yeah,
things. I could have been more than just a mother or more than, not just a mother. That doesn't sound right.
right.
But, that's their whole identity. And when they lose that, sometimes there's resentment, but there's also a sense, I think, of, especially if it's a grandchild or a child, that they have this willingness and this desire to give better to the next generation. So don't, kind of don't learn from my mistakes. Don't repeat
Yeah.
my mistakes. Just have your own life. And it is a different world we're living in right now. And I absolutely, absolutely love it. And that we're at a world where it's okay to say, it's okay to be me, or it's okay not to be okay. Like that
Mm.
wasn't a thing 25 years
Right.
ago.
Do
You
you ever
couldn't
see
say
that
that.
they get upset or maybe angry because they're like, even if they do understand, they think about so much that could have been different and it makes them mad?
I've seen people kind of resentful and kind of, avoiding even looking at what they missed. It's like I say, you can't go back.
Yeah.
It's gone. So now just take what you have and live your absolute best life going forward. I talked to a lady that I was actually in Al Anon meetings with, and she was so dear to me. And I remember her telling me one time, she said, Tammy, I'm 71, and for the first time, I feel like I actually have control of my life. And it was a warming feeling because it wasn't until she was 68, I think is when I met her, 67, 68, that she was still under the thumb of everybody around her, being a chronic people pleaser, doing everything for everybody but herself.
Mm, that's fair. That's fair. That's very fair. I know that I found out early and it made me mad. That's why I had to ask.
Yeah, Jenner, think about now and think of had it you not found out for another 40 years. You'd be
Yeah.
like, "Man, what did I miss out on?" But you can't have regrets. I mean, that's one of the biggest things of the whole process of growth anyway, is just forgiveness, and whether it's for the people that did you wrong or even for what you denied yourself. You still have to give yourself some grace with that. So,
Hmm.
And Tammy, while I was taking a moment away, I heard you say, I don't know what his dad did for a living. My dad was an executive for Nordstrom for 30 years.
Okay.
And so he was Mr. McDonald. And this is common amongst older men. He was Mr. McDonald, and then he retired. And then he became just Jack. And Jack didn't know who Jack was
Mm-hmm.
because of his career, and he'd always been, he was one of those guys that people would scurry around the department at Nordstrom's trying to make sure everything was just so, because Mr. McDonald was coming. Mr. McDonald was coming. We're scared. And then he retired, and then nobody paid attention to him anymore. And he didn't know what to do with himself. It was really sad.
And it is sad. And that's why I encourage people, even while you've got kids or you've got grandkids or whatever it is, still hold on to yourself, hold on to your own life, find your own activities, go walking with a book club, do whatever, walk on the beach with a bunch of friends, find activities that let you figure out who you are, because it's too easy to get lost in that. It's too easy to get lost in all the other things everybody wants you to be. And then you're left like, uh-oh. I mean, I'm actually getting ready to be a true empty nester in a couple weeks. And because I've always invited my grown kids to come back and live with me. So they keep kind of cycling back through.
Oh.
But my last one is 30 and graduating May 5th. And I'm like, he's going off to do his thing. And I'm like, huh. But I know I like to go walk on the beach. I know I love podcasting. I know I love reading books. I'm not going to crumble up and wither away and not know who I am without my children. And I encourage people to do that.
Yes.
Well, because you know what, Tammy, I got to tell you, because I are there, and my kids don't live with me, and they've got their own lives. They're both married, and they've got kids, and they've got all that stuff. And so there comes a point in time for like little old grandpa over here that nobody cares, or it appears nobody cares as much because they're so busy leading their lives. And it's not their job to take care of me. My job is to take care of myself, which is why I do this. And I love doing this, just like you do because you do almost as many podcasts as I do in one way or another.
I guest on a lot. I love it though. I love, like I said, I'm a stand on top of the mountain and scream whatever I got to say. So
Yep.
let me scream to as many people as possible.
Well, and I like to think that you're screaming to a lot of people today. So thank you.
Well, yeah.
And it's great. If somebody wants to get a hold of you or to talk to you or just look at your website, it's TammyVincent.com, correct?
Yep. And you can reach out to me and I'll chat about anything. I love coffee chats. I love getting to know people. I have courses on there that you can take, free seminars you can sign up for every Wednesday. My favorite called Awakening Your Authentic Self, which really teaches people how to get back in touch with themselves, because we all deserve to know ourselves and to love ourselves like we were born to be loved.
We need to take a break, but when we come back, I'd like to explore that a little bit, because a lot of people are kind of asleep and they don't really recognize that is even a possibility for them. And they're like, well, all I do is I have my day timer and I have my calendar and I live by that. And I go from place to place and do things to things, but I never stop and take time for myself to just reconnect with myself. Can we talk about that?
Absolutely.
We'll be right back. And Rochelle, can we take a break now?
Yes, I suppose that's okay.
Okay.
At 67 years young, I never thought I'd feel this good again. But thanks to Purium's Ultimate Transformation Lifestyle, to date, I've lost 37 pounds and gained energy, confidence, and a whole new outlook on life. This isn't a diet. Purium is a complete lifestyle change, giving me all the natural, organic, nutrition-packed superfoods that fuel my body, crush my cravings, and help me burn fat naturally, without starving myself. No gimmicks, no guesswork, just a simple, proven system that works. Superfood shakes, detox support, and real results. If I can do this at 67, imagine what you can do. It's your time to feel better, look better, and live better with Purium. Let's do it now, and let's do it together. Go to www.positivetalkradio.net and click on the Transform You to get started. That's positivetalkradio.net. Transform you.
And welcome back to Positive Talk. Brichelle's right there. Say hello, Brichelle.
Hi.
And reintroduce our guest for us, would you
Yes,
please?
we have Tammy Vincent, who talks to people at all stages of life to understand that you need to first connect with yourself so you don't lose who you are aside from your job and your kids and your relationships and other things and situations. But also to know that if you have come to that point, you can still do something about it. So thank you for being here, Tammy. And Kevin, do you remember your question?
Yes, I
Okay,
do.
good.
Because we were talking about knowing who you are and remembering yourself and remembering who you are and taking care of yourself. So many of us go from event to event to event to event and things to things. They never take time for themselves. And some people, Tammy, I'm sure in your experience, don't even know that that's even a possibility.
No, they don't know that at all. And a lot of people, unfortunately, if we're the people, the majority of the people that I work with as well, all grew up in kind of a tumultuous environment to begin with. So they lost a lot of the fact that they're allowed to be themselves when they were young children. They were told to act and conform and to be perfect and to kind of put a mask on based on what was around them and what they were doing. So I remember the first time someone said to me, well, who is Tammy? I'm like, well, I'm a mother and I work here. And no, who is Tammy? I'm like, I don't know. And then the next question was, well, what are your, when you're talking about being yourself and protecting your own mental health, there's things like boundaries and things like that. And if you don't know who you are and what you stand for, you don't even know how to set those. So it was really a shocker when I realized, I don't know those things. How do I? And it took many, many years of figuring out what do I like? What values do I like in people, even so that I'm not a doormat for people. And I used to call myself a chameleon. I remember the first time someone said to me, who are you? And I said, I'm whatever you need me to be because I'm good at it. I can fit into any mold, any role, anything you need me to be, because that's how I was that's how I was taught.
And at the same time, I'm willing to bet that you also were a people pleaser.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I still struggle with that to this day, honestly.
Well, I think we all do to some extent because I
Yep.
want everybody to love me. So I've got to please them for them to love me, but that doesn't necessarily work for us.
Right. Right. And people pleasing is one of the most defeating ways to go through life. Something as simple as I want to go get Chinese food and the other person wants a pizza and you don't have the guts or your stomach gets all in a knot because you can't even say, well, how about Chinese food? Like literally people live like that their entire lives and they just shut down, completely shut down. And then it's all of a sudden because it's in the back of their mind that their opinions and their facts and their wants and their needs aren't really going to be validated anyway, or they aren't important. That's what's in their subconscious mind. So to fight for what they want or believe is unheard of in their minds.
And
Well,
when
you,
they have that happen, what do you see? How do you help them move past that doesn't feel like so heavy?
The first thing I help them do is actually figure out who they are. And that is what their core values are and what they want to see in the people around them. Because most likely, if you're in these habits and in these patterns, you're attracting people that are just like the people that you grew up with to begin with. And they're not
Yep.
always your best choices. So
Yeah.
we work together to kind of figure out who you are, what your core values are. And then you can start slowly setting some boundaries and start slowly attracting the people into your life that fit into those core values because that's where you're going to find your happiness and your peace, and
Mhm.
you can start to slowly get the people out that don't fit out in them. And it's a process. It's not like all of a sudden you can cut every toxic person out of your life. You just can't do that. It's a process. But even something so small, I always tell people, if you've never been able to stand up for yourself or stick up for yourself, do something small, like go into a restaurant and order something that's not on the menu, right? It's getting out of your comfort zone. It's doing something a little crazy. I mean, you're not going to try to set a major boundary with a child, a grown child, or a parent if you've never done it in your whole life. So you got to start
Mm.
small. All these, any of these steps are baby steps, but everyone's worth it.
Amen.
How do you know? Because there are people that are listening to us right now that are saying, "Oh, well, I don't know. I'm." How do you know when you are? See, for me, it happened when I was 42. When I said, "Why am I here? What am I here to do? This ain't it." And I went on a journey to find out what that was. But there are people that are like they're searching and they want to know more, but they don't know how to access this information from inside of themselves. How do you recommend somebody get to know who they really are?
I like to say, well, first of all, some people don't even know if they're happy or if they're just going through the motions. And I always
Yes,
say,
yes,
picture
yep.
yourself like if you were to 10 years from now, everything stayed the same. Would you look back at those 10 years and say, I was doing exactly what I wanted to be doing and I was happy in it and I have no regrets? Because most likely you're going to go, no, I wish I had gotten out of that job. I wish I had gotten that divorce. I'm not advocating divorce, guys. I wish I had, whatever it is. But really think about the future. 10 years from now, are you going to be happy if you're doing what you're doing right now? And if you're not, then time to investigate some changes. But I always say to really get down to those core, what do I really love? It's like kind of close your eyes and picture your most amazing, beautiful day and write down everything that encompasses that day, the people that it involves, what those people are like, what you're doing, what the tone is. Is it quiet? Is it loud? I mean, all of those things. Put as much of that as your day into it as you can on a piece of paper. And then think of a situation that would be like a day you wouldn't want any, to do with at all, an icky day. And do the same thing. And then you can kind of look and go, okay, those are like my core values and my core things I want to stay away from.
Hmm.
And then you can start slowly setting guidelines around those things. If honesty, if you picture, oh my gosh, that worst day, this guy lied to me 3 times. Well, and then you go out on a first date and you catch him in a little white lie, red flag, not on my core value list. See ya.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for asking that question, Kevin, because in my head I'm thinking, do you ever see where people maybe retract and they go back to what was comfortable because they just don't want to face everything that could be possible?
And it's not even so much that they don't want to face it. Our brains are wired for familiarity, and they would
Right.
rather be our brains are there to the path of least resistance, and they would rather do something familiar and uncomfortable than something uncomfortable. That is why we're attracted to toxic people if we are raised by toxic people, because you know how to react in that situation, you
Mm.
know how to act, and it's familiar. And unfortunately, our brains were there to protect us 100%. But like you said, Kevin, going into the future and into adulthood, those patterns that we develop don't always help us. So we have to rewire them.
Because oftentimes those patterns are somebody else telling us what to believe, or they're telling us the story that we now are taking internally, that we're calling it gospel, and it's not even close, and it's not accurate. And oftentimes people tell us stuff that they don't even, it pisses me off. I'm sorry. But people will tell you things in your life, and you will take it like it's gospel, and it'll sink deeply inside of you, and they don't even remember that they even said it.
Yep.
Hmm. Yep.
Happens a lot.
Absolutely. Oh, it happens all the time. And that's why, it's like once you figure out what you like, who you are, what you stand for, and then somebody says something, you will, instead of your subconscious mind going, grab that and store it away deep and let it hurt me 2 years from now, you will be like, no, that's not true. And even that's the same with self-talk too. When you start doing that to yourself, you have to question it and you have to challenge it, or else it's going back deep into your memory in that memory bank that you're going to act out on later.
Yeah, very true. And has me thinking. So, like, I could imagine somebody who's in their middle age. They've got the family going on, this and that, blah blah blah, and they know, like, kind of how Kevin said at 42, it was like, what am I doing? And I could imagine how terrifying that is, because if you learn it a little bit young, then you have the whole future. And then if you learn it a little bit later, then you have the rest of your time, and you can look back and be proud of what you knew at that time, and give yourself grace. But when you're in the middle of it and you meet someone who's like, okay, well, what I want is nothing that I'm living by. I hate this job. I hate this house. I don't want to have a relationship with this person, all those things. How do you kind of help guide them in that way of it being different, with them trying to change their current state rather than what's ahead and what's in the past?
Well, the best thing I can say, and honestly, I think it's to try to live in the future. I mean, in the present, because 90%, like Kevin said, 90% of the stuff is because of what happened to us in the past, and what happened, and
Right.
what was said, and what was brought to us. And then the rest of it, the rest of anxiety, fear, panic, stress, all of that is catastrophizing about something in the future, which is based on something in the past. So if you
Okay.
really try to focus on living in the moment, it's kind of like right now,
Yeah.
not in the past or the future, that can kind of keep you grounded. And that makes you look at it as a real situation, not a story you made up, or a story that could have been changed 1,000 times. And then there's also like neuro-linguistic programming, which is NLP. It's
Mhm.
an art. I say it's an art, but
Yeah.
that helps you kind of go back and rewrite some of those stories and put new meaning to anything. I mean, you can put meaning. If you're a person that's a perfectionist and you walk into your job and your boss raises his eyebrows, you're immediately, if you have that kind of trauma reactive background, you're going to say, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? I'm always messing things up, and it's going to snowball. Whereas if you can stop that, and you can just right now be like, and challenge it, be like, why did he raise his eyebrows? Oh, maybe he has something wrong with his eye. Haha, that's funny. Just whatever it is, but you have to stop things in the moment, and nip them in the bud, and don't let yourself go back, and don't let yourself go forward.
Do you see that when people are in that current present state, it's easier for them to start reaching out and asking for help and trying to figure out a way that they can create that future?
I think so. I believe so. I'd like to believe so, because that is when we're dealing in the present, we're actually seeing and what's going on right now. If we're willing to look at what is actually happening to us, it's kind of like an emotion. If you can get angry, we're going to get angry. But if we're going to get sad, we're going to get mad, we're going to have a multitude of these emotions. But if you can kind of sit with them for 90 seconds. That's all it takes for an emotion to pass. And don't judge it. Don't think a story about it. Don't move with it. Just sit with it. It will pass. And then you can have another emotion. I know that sounds kind of weird. I don't know if that even answered the question, but it keeps
No,
you.
that's amazing. If anything, please reiterate for the people in the back.
So, yeah, I tell everybody that it's an emotion, 90 seconds. Just sit with it, and don't make a story about it. Don't talk about it. Don't feed into it. Just be curious about it, acknowledge it. And I always say to if it's going back to your inner child, or it's going back to something you're going to try to react to, it's okay. I'm here right now, and I'm safe, and I'm good. And
Mm.
this too shall pass. And that literally can stop almost any bad thing in the moment. But going back to your question about like when you're in the present, and the job, and you literally mentioned the three biggest things there are. I hate my life, I hate my job, I hate my work, I hate my relationship. Those are big concepts to tackle.
Right.
And the best suggestion I can say is, if you're struggling in any one of them, go find a support, something, because your story that's up here has most likely been fed to you by someone else. I always
Mm.
tell people, like, for the first 20 years of my life, I felt like somebody else was writing my autobiography. Mine was writing it for me.
Yeah.
And like when I finally was like, give me the pen.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm like, you're mean. Let me do this.
yeah, you're mean. Let's do this. And also like going back to that whole in the moment thing. A lot of the things that these stories are all made up. We make them up because, for one, if you're a traumatized child, there's large portions of your life that you don't even remember. And so we make up these stories and we fill up in these gaps. And then every time we tell the story or someone asks or we think about it, the story embellishes and moves around and blah, blah. It's not the same story. So I'm like, if you're going to make up the story anyway, make it up good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Be positive. Be positive. Come up with a better story. You don't know it
You're
anyway.
gonna lie,
So,
make it a good lie.
yeah.
well, but isn't it true? Said the district attorney. Isn't it true that anything that you believe and that you know you can make happen?
Absolutely. I truly believe that. I truly, truly believe that. Your
And
mind and the energy around your world is so incredibly powerful. And there's a lot to be said for it.
and we're talking with Tammy Vincent. Go to TammyVincent.com. We need to take our halftime break. And when we come back, Rochelle's got an amazing question to ask. I don't know, but we'll see. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald and Rochelle. Our guest today is Tammy Vincent. And I've got to tell you, everybody that's listening to this show is the essence of what Positive Talk is. Because you have the ability, we all have the ability to change our life and to change it for the better. Not that there aren't going to be some bumps in the road and a bad country music song every now and again, but you can change your life for the better. But you need to recognize that that better actually exists and that the stories that you've been told, you've been lied to. And Tammy, Rochelle, I told you to think up a dynamic question. Did you come up with one?
Yes, I did.
All right.
You might have answered it, but it'll have us go a little bit deeper. So I was thinking about people going through the process of realizing it, taking the action, and then putting that into momentum in their life. Do you see that it is harder for them to grasp learning themselves? Or do you see in a lot of ways it's harder for them to actually make that real and move into actually doing it and creating that life?
I think that you need a partner in crime, or I guess you could say, or someone to walk the journey with you. And the reason is because kind of like we've been touching on, when you are dealing with healing and you're dealing with built-in and ingrained belief systems that came from other people, you're dealing with your subconscious mind. So, that's the reason I say like an affirmation. Like you can say to yourself, "Hey, I'm worthy, I'm good, I deserve great things," and all of this stuff all you want. But then when it comes down to making a decision, split decision, rubber hits the road, you're going from your subconscious mind and you're reacting to that. And so I think if you have somebody that can walk with you and help you through the process to question, because like I said, I'm a big one on you're going to have to self-reflect.
Mm-hmm.
That is often very difficult for people, especially when you've grown up in a traumatic type environment and you no longer want to be the victim. You now want to be the victor. So and to have to play your role in it and to take part in your role sometimes is very difficult. And that's why I say always have a person with you or have somebody you can trust, a friend, a coach, a counselor, whatever it is, somebody that you can walk with you in that journey. But I think that you just need a step, and the steps like a guideline. And there's no A to urgency for healing. There's no, there's no, oh, there's the stop sign down there. And when I get there, it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
It's linear. It's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. So I think that if you have the steps though, like you say, like the first step might be just getting to know who you are again. And then the second step might be starting to assert some small boundaries, still by knowing who you are. And then the third step might be to really grab some toxic people out of your life and change relationships. Start working on those relationships while still knowing who you are and maintaining those boundaries. So it's a process. But I think that once you commit, and I don't want to say I don't believe in like the when you're in a 12-step program and the addiction and you hear people say they have to hit their rock bottom and then they'll get better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that's the case. It can take one song that makes you cry. It can take one question on a podcast where someone says, "Do you ever feel like this?" And all of a sudden, wham, it hits you, and it's not usually subtle. It's usually, "Oh my God, I've got to do something and change now if I want to be happy down the road." So once you get that, then you can start working, and I call them my non-negotiables. So I have just non-negotiables. So if let's just say, for instance, I want to lose 6 pounds before this wedding. I know this is my goal, and this is not my goal. So every choice I make, I have to say to myself, does it hinder me getting to my goal, or does it help me? And I put non-negotiables. So if it hinders me, there's no question, there's no emotion, there's no rationalization. It's just, nope, doesn't help me. Bam, it's a non-negotiable. So sometimes that sounds like people say that sounds really drastic. But sometimes that is easier than to have to rationalize and process every single decision you make. Because when you are deciding to change major things in your life, there will be major decisions, and there'll be tiny micro decisions every single minute.
I love how you said that too, because then it's like you don't have to waste the time of explaining yourself, right?
Yep. I mean, literally, like let's say you're going on it. Let's just use the diet thing because that's easy, because everybody's been on a diet at some point in their life. And someone says, "Hey, you want to go for ice cream?" "Nope, I'm on a diet." Okay.
Can't fight that.
Nope. It's not helping me to lose my 6 pounds. Nope. And yeah, you don't have to explain yourself. And honestly, and that's one of the biggest things in this when you're going to make big decisions and you're starting to practice boundaries and everything else, is that, guys, you are all worthy and beautiful and your own people. You don't have to explain anything to anybody about why you do what you do. Period.
It's none of my business what you think of me.
Hey, first time I thought of that. I said that to work the other day, and somebody laughed at me. I said, they were like, "Well, they don't really like you." And I was like, "Hey, what they think of me is none of my business." They looked at me kind of funny, and they were like, "Wait, no." And I was like, "No, it's really what I mean. I could care less."
Well, and Tammy, I think that's because people think that you care, because they do. And then when you probably made such an impact too. Those people around you are like, "Wait, maybe it's better to not know. Maybe you just don't want to." And then I don't have to, like you said, break it down, try to rationalize it, understand someone else, understand me, explain my boundaries. It's just, this is what it is, and that is that.
Yep.
Tammy, I got to ask you, because I think this is a thing, and I don't know if it's a thing, but I'm going to ask you if it's a thing. Is it a thing that rather than just observing, setting an intention and observing the outcome of how everything is coming to you and is tending to line up with your intention, or not, is that something that you should pay attention to? Let me give you an example. Years ago, I wanted to make some fundamental changes, and I get messages through song. There was a song that came on the radio and it was real popular at the time, and it was called "I Hope You Dance" by Leanne Womack. And every time that song played, it reinforced my decisions and my desire to really get out and and to make my life work, and to take that step and to dance and stuff. And Rochelle sings that song really beautifully, by the way.
Thanks.
We won't make her do it today.
Yeah, please don't.
No, not today. But when you set that intention with yourself, and then you watch the universe conspire, and I think conspire is the right word, because they are interested in, because they know that we're all born great, and they're all part of our greatness and our exercising of that greatness. And so they're there to help us in every step. And as long as we say yes and pay attention to it, then great things will happen for us. Do you believe that?
I do. And as a matter of fact, I think the one thing you should not do, though, is, and it's kind of like whether you believe in God or the universe or the divine or whatever it is you never put time limits on something. If
Nope.
you can see yourself doing that, just see yourself doing that and go with it. It's like, then it's like rolling with a river instead of like swimming upstream. You know what I mean? Like, just go with it, but constantly visualize that and have that intention. It's
And-
like Joe Dispenza said, he says it all the time. Right? He probably, we all know, poor little guy. We quote him so much, but it's the positive energy. I literally think there's so much, and I know I talked about energy before, but there's so much to what you think about, you bring about. And if you have that clear intention and you visualize it, all the energy is going to go to helping you somehow get that. But you can't question it. You can't beat yourself up. You can't decide the how, the when, the why, and the where. You just have to know it's down there. And set the intention for it.
That's exactly right. Because the universe, you don't know everything that you need to, because you don't know what you don't know. We don't know everything that we need to know to get to where we want to go. And so what the universe will do in my world anyway, is it conspired with me to give me the experiences and the steps that I needed to learn and to take to get to where I wanted to go, so that I could do what I wanted to do and continue forward with that. Does that make any sense to anybody, or do I need to be on medication?
No, it makes total sense. It makes complete and total sense. And I just think, and again, that's your end goal. So whether it's just to have some serenity in your life, that could be at the end. It could be, all I want is just to have some serenity in my life. And if you picture and you sit there and visualize yourself in that perfect day all the time, for one, it's knocking all the negative emotions out of your world because they're just wasted. There's just so many wasted negative emotions, honestly. But if you're constantly just I believe a lot in visualization too. So.
Oh, I agree with you. As a matter of fact, in my world, right now, this moment is the best moment of my life. Right. Because I get to talk to you, and I get to talk to Rochelle, and I get to talk to our entire audience. This is the moment. Until the next one.
Yeah, that's being in the present. And I know we need to take our last break, but either before or after the break, Kevin, you can decide. I would like to ask you, Tammy, if you ever see that somebody says, well, being who I want to be and doing what I want to do is against my current values. And so they have to actually do a little bit more work, because they have to change their current values and figure out new ones and understand how they can do that without feeling pressurized, and giving themselves grace and understanding, and what that's like, and if that's ever happened. So should we take a break, Kevin, and we'll finish off strong?
Yeah, yes, because that question that you just asked is not a 2-minute question to answer.
No. Yes, I know.
So you're listening to Positive Talk with Rochelle, and with me, and with Tammy, and we will be right back after this 30-second commercial. Calm down. It's just a little one. We'll be right back.
When the game is on the line, championship teams know the game plan. They communicate and work together to win. We all need a game plan to protect ourselves online. Talk to family and friends so they know how to stay safe too. Create strong passwords, turn on multi-factor authentication, update software, and recognize and report phishing, because online safety is not something you want to fumble. Get more game-winning tips at CISA.gov/secure our world. Then share them with family and friends.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, Rochelle, and Tammy Vincent is with us. It is so great to have you here. You're gonna have to come back, young lady, I'm afraid.
Yes.
I will.
So much to talk about.
I know.
Yes. So, do you need if Rochelle can remember the question? Do you need her to remind you of what it is, or can you?
No.
Okay.
No. So just to recap, if anybody jumped in after the commercial, so she asked me if someone is kind of wanting to make some major changes, but say that you're questioning if they have to, it's against their values to change them. Is that what you're saying? Or like they're going with what they're doing now, which they think is aligned with their values, and then they're going to have to change to do that? Is that
No,
what you're
what you
basically?
currently said, their values now kind of go against what they see their values could be if they
Okay.
chose themselves first.
Okay. So I'm going to, I don't want to squash your question or anything like that, but I'm going to challenge it in saying that if they are wanting to change and moving into this new set of values, they're not living by their values right now.
Mm.
If they are
Good.
fully living as themselves, happy, content, living all of their core values out to their fullest, they wouldn't want to change. Your core values don't change. So I'll give you an example. So let's say you want to go out and be an entrepreneur and travel with your family because you want the freedom and the value and the lifestyle and all of that stuff, but you're working this job right now because it brings in a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And right now, so you're thinking, well, my values right now are I'm a provider and I need to provide for my family or whatever. I would say those aren't your values, because when you say, you have your why, and everybody has their why, and that's what I talk about, your purpose. Everybody has a purpose, and I don't know what it is, and some people struggle to find out what it is, but you all have one. But let's say you think that providing for your family is your purpose, and then you say, well, why is that? Well, because then my kids can have what I didn't have. Well, why is that? Well, because then they can do this. You have to ask yourself about 7 layers deep of why before you find the real answer, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I truly believe if you are feeling you need to make a big shift that you're not aligned with your values right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So would you say that it really all comes back to them realizing if that value is for themselves or if it's for somebody else?
Absolutely. Because if you are not 100% content and happy, then you're doing it for some other reason. And it could be the wrong reason. It could be a very noble reason. So I'm not squashing or judging anybody.
Right.
It could never doing that. It could be a great reason, but it's not your reason for you. Because if it was for you, and hopefully you would like to think that if your reason for you also included the people that you love. I mean, I would like to think, in a perfect world, not I want to go fly across the country, so forget my kids. But no, it's your big why should include those people that you love. But I believe that there's some more soul searching to doing at your present moment.
Right.
Like even questioning, like, why am I, you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And not for someone else, but for yourself.
For yourself. Yes.
There's somebody in our audience that's sitting there going, wait a minute. If I'm taking care of myself and I'm doing what I want to do, then how selfish is that? I must be doing something wrong, because it's way too selfish to be doing what I want to do when I'm supposed to be doing all these other things and to be of service and do all of this kind of stuff. And
the supposed to, that was key right there, Kevin.
Exactly. It's when you start saying, I'm supposed to do this, that's probably not a good statement to make, is it?
No. And and you do have roles. I mean, you can't just ditch everything else and go off and do your own thing when you have children and great, there's a happy medium to, you have to take care of yourself. And, it's like people will say to me, well, you give everything to those kids and you're too easy on them or whatever, but, or you'll give up something a day at the park, or I'll give up something that I was going to do to go with my son somewhere. And people are like, well, why would you do that? Because it gives me joy. So even
Mm,
though it looked like a sacrifice, it wasn't. It was because I valued that time with my son more than whatever I was planning on doing. So sometimes it's a bad, like people will even look and go, what are you doing? But I knew that I did not feel, if you do something and you have a regret about it, then
mm,
it wasn't for the right reasons, or it wasn't for you. It was to just please someone else and appease someone. And pleasing and appeasing are just not not always, not always a good thing.
And Tammy, in your work, you have said here that we have everything that we need inside to have an amazing life. We just need to choose joy in every way, in every circumstance. That can be harder than it seems to really do, can't it?
It really is, and it's a whole, that's opening a whole nother can of worms in another hour show. But I just
I know I had to bring it
I
up with 8 minutes left.
but
This is a good
I
way
know,
to
but
end it to go into the next.
it really is. But I just feel like, I mean, life is a choice, and you're going to be hit with so many different circumstances, so many things, tragedies happen, trauma happens, grief happens. You can either choose to embrace it and learn from it and grow from it, or you can choose to let it hold you down. And one of the
Mm,
best expressions I've ever heard, and I didn't make it up, believe me, was you can either you can either feel like life is happening to you or it's happening for you. And when you think it's happening for you, you will find the joy and even the grief.
yeah. And that makes me think of fear. Don't do it out of fear. Because I was at one point, I became a little crazy, Tammy, and I'm sharing this vulnerably because please don't drive yourself insane. But it came down to like, what if I do or don't do this, and kind of the butterfly effect of things kind of stressed me out, and I got way too serious about it. Should I go straight or should I turn at this light? What's going to happen? What's going to be the difference? And that's how I knew that in my present moment, I wasn't even connected to myself because it was out of fear. So if
Yeah.
you catch yourself doing that, give yourself some grace. Remind yourself of Burchelle, who drove herself crazy, whether she was going straight or right through that light, and why. And just really live at an ease. What Kevin always told me is let it be. And that was easy for me to just ground myself back to me and have an intuition that made me stop thinking about why I was doing each thing I was doing and what it would affect at some extreme level, but kept me with the awareness of how I responded and reacted to things and how that could cause another effect.
Yeah.
My
Awareness.
favorite, the gospel according to Paul McCartney. Just let it be.
Yep.
I mean, that's a huge life lesson. If you can't control it, why stress about it? Find what you can learn from it and just let it happen, and you just take it as it comes, but try to look at it with a positive mind, because I mean, this is the Positive Talk Radio. It's muscle memory, and you have to train your brain to think positively. It doesn't happen immediately. You have to turn every situation, and I tell people that, like, for one day, write down everything that comes into your mind and flip it positive and write it down. Do it for a day. And I've had journals and journals and journals come back to me. And after
Mm.
about 3 months, all of a sudden, like, wow, I'm starting to see the good in everything.
Yeah. Do you
And
hear
that's,
people ever tell you, Tammy, I think I know what peace feels like now?
yes, I've had people say, like that 71-year-old, I finally got control of my life. I feel like my life is mine. I've had people tell me, they never thought that they'd live another day without anxiety. And
Mm.
and when I just walk them through, and they're still going to have, again, we're still going to be triggered by things. We're still going to, but we teach people how to face those fears and face those triggers. Don't just stuff them under the rug. Just, talk, whether it's come on here, wherever it is, talk to people. And nobody's got a unique situation. There's billions of people in the world, and we've all gone through some stuff. And so people out there understand, but you just have to talk.
And when you get to a certain point in your journey, I believe that you can get to a point where you're no longer getting triggered by things. You're watching yourself and you're watching the potential for getting triggered, but you've risen above it and you now know, oh, that used to trigger me. That doesn't do that anymore because I understand it now. And I understand it has nothing to do with anything other than my mind going crazy at a moment, Rochelle.
Yep. And your mind is an amazing thing. I mean, that's why your senses are so incredible. I mean, I've vomited on a table 35 years after an event happened because of the sound of something on TV. So your mind, and so believe me, that took some work to get over that. That's a whole nother story. But the triggers, yeah, and you're a layer, you're an onion. You're going to keep undoing layers and layers and layers and layers of stuff. But stuff that used to trigger me, and that's how you know you're healed from something, is when you have zero physiological response to it. Zero. Where somebody will say something that used to clench you up, or if you have, because your body, it's all in your body. It's all in your nervous system. So if you have zero physiological response, you know that you beat that one.
Would you agree that it's helpful if, like, let's say somebody was struggling, or you yourself was struggling, someone came to you and said, you don't have to bound yourself to that, and that doesn't have to be, how am I trying to phrase this? It's like, I think
it doesn't have to be your story.
Yeah, like anything can be, but how much are you allowing it to actually be a part of you and believe it?
Right. No. And that's what a lot of the NLP and a lot of therapists will go back and really rename that story, give it a new meaning, give it new, whatever you have to reframe it is the best word.
When we have you back on the show, we have to talk about that.
Okay.
Okay.
And by the way, Tammy, her website again is tammyvincent.com. Go find her, and she's absolutely right. We all need to have somebody else who can see our blind spots because we can't see them all. And it's helpful when somebody else can point some things out to us. So, Tammy, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And Rochelle, I know you do too.
Yes, 100%. And before we leave, again, please, everybody, go visit tammyvincent.com and see what you can find out about yourself. And before we leave, Tammy, something that you'd like to share with our audience.
I just want to say that no matter what you've been through, no matter what's happened, no matter where you are in life, if you are not 100% where you want to be, you owe it to yourself and you deserve it, because you are absolutely amazing to go do whatever it takes to get yourself to the next level, because you deserve it.
And not only that, Tammy, don't you agree that it will affect everyone in your life that is around you?
Yep. And you can't pour from an empty cup.
There's another bumper sticker. So, and Tammy, it's great to have you here. And thank you again for doing this. And you're going to have to come back. And Rochelle, I'm going to leave the last word to you, my friend.
Just thank you again, Tammy. When we came into the show, Kevin said that what you are about and the work you do and the person you are is exactly what Positive Talk Radio thrives to stand for. So thank you for absolutely everything. Please come back super soon. I'm going to have so many questions. And thank you for everybody who joined us in and stayed with us through this episode. I hope that you have something to take with it and learn for yourselves or help somebody else. So thanks for being with us at Positive Talk Radio with Kevin McDonald, myself, and Tammy Vincent. Have a great night.
Brilliant. Simply brilliant.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin